Back to Night On in Focus, and thank you for staying with us. Section 27 has filed court papers demanding that the Department of Basic Education refurbish Limpopo's schools several years since the project was supposed to begin. The Education Rights Lobby Group is representing 4 schools where it says it found the existing infrastructure so poor that it threatens the lives of staff and pupils. Joining us now to explain the action is Dr. Faranaaz Veriava, who heads Section 27's Education Rights Program. Dr. Faranaaz, good to have you with us, and thank you very much for your time. Take us back a little bit. Why has this particular project of refurbishing the schools stalled, that now you need to take them to court for them to resume?
Yes, so as you know, schools in Limpopo are some of the most severely dilapidated, the poorest schools with severely dilapidated infrastructure, many classrooms in a state of disrepair. And many of these schools, including the 4 schools that we are representing in these papers, there's a common story between all of them, which is they were all schools that have repeatedly gone to the government and requested that their schools be fixed because of dangerous infrastructure. There have been promises made by the schools, by the department. In many instances, there's tenders that have gone out. In the case of our first applicant in Zalama School, there's even an expenditure that shows on the Limpopo Department of Education budget of 3.5 million that has already been spent on the school. But to date, there has been no work done on any of our schools. So what happened was that in 2022, these schools, as I said, were all promised that there would be repairs done to their schools. In 2022, as we know, COVID happened. And a lot of the money that was meant for the schools was then diverted to COVID expenditure. Whether or not that was the right place they should have gone for it, that's another story. But our concern is that we are past 2022 now. We are in 2021. The budget for infrastructure was allocated again in 2021, back to normal levels of expenditure. The same thing in 2022. And yet we haven't seen any movement in any of our client schools. But yet, on the books, it says these schools should all be in a state of completion by next year. So we are asking government to do some explaining to us, basically.
What is the government saying in their papers? I believe they are, of course, opposing this application.
Yeah, so as you may know, we filed papers. Government has just filed their notice of opposition. They then have a further number of days in which they will give us their answering affidavit. We haven't received their answering affidavit as of yet, so we don't know what they are going to be saying. It will be interesting to see, given that there were promises made, there have been allocations made, and as I've said, there's even been expenditure, but there is no movement on any of these schools to explain the expenditure or, what's being said on the books.
So as a result, what are the challenges that these particular schools are facing currently?
Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. So the challenges, it depends on the nature of the state of disrepair, that the school is in. In some places, there's such overcrowding because you're having to move 3 classes into 1 classroom, and then you have extremely hot classrooms, for example. In other instances where you have, holes in the roof, you have learners that have to go outside because it's dangerous, or they have to learn under trees. And basically a lot of it is the kind of same stories that we've been seeing and hearing about for years and years. But, what we are saying is that there was a promise made here, there were tenders put out, and the schools need to be fixed.
What are you asking the courts to do then, as far as your pleas?
We are firstly asking them to explain to us So we understand that there was some kind of decision made in 2022 to divert the expenditure, to divert the budget to COVID expenditure. So we are asking them what was that decision and to give us a justification for that decision. We're also asking them to give us a new plan for these schools and to, at the same time, give us proper budgets to assess the adverse impact of their decision to stop working on these schools, and basically just to invite us into their confidence and explain to us what is going on. Where tenders were put out, where is that in the process? In each and every one of these schools, none of the school governing bodies or the headmasters or headmistresses of these schools know what their position is in relation to the upgrading of these schools. So it's about telling us what is happening, giving us a chance to comment, and developing a plan and delivering on that plan.
Dr. Faranaaz, Veriava, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on tonight.